Hi everyone, it's Eddie Winkler and welcome back to our video series for the CRIM and Jazz model. This is going to be part 2, prepping your model for painting. We'll get into it by saying that if you've just received your CRIM and Jazz model, be aware that it is a resin model. It is a 3D print. We are going to want to wear our gloves if we're not sure of any allergies or sensitivity to resin. You're going to want your gloves. You don't know if it's going to be wet or whatever. So getting into it, if we look at our model, you're going to see little parts of your model which are supports for when the model is being 3D printed.
All right, everybody, this is Phil, just interjecting here. The way you guys probably got your kits is with these supports still on. So all you have to do is you could just use your hands, and I'm not wearing gloves, but if you want to use gloves, you can, or pliers, and you can just rip these supports off. They're brittle, and maybe use some eye protection because the little resin pieces may go flying everywhere, but they are made to be pulled off like that. So that'll probably be the first thing that you have to do. And it may be better to use pliers or some sort of robo grips. So you could just rip these right off, snap them off, and be careful because the pieces can be pointy.
You'll see little things like that, like this, right around the fingers. We're going to clean all that up, but first we're going to take a look and make sure that our model is dry. Sometimes you'll get a print sent out, or if you're printing them yourself, whatever, it'll look a little wet and the resin hasn't cured so much. Just to make sure of that before we go to prime, because you can see little shiny spots. It's probably dry, but we're going to take our precautions before we clean these supports. So we're going to start by saying, again, resin, you'll probably want your mask on if you're not sure your sensitivity. We're not dealing with actual printing it or actually printing it, so the mask isn't really going to do a lot until we do the sanding. And one of our containers and our old toothbrush, and we'll get started and I'll show you what to do. We're going to take a napkin so that our model has a place to dry, and you're not going to want to put this on your expensive furniture. This is my hobby desk that I've had for many years, somewhat taken care of, but it's okay if it gets a little bit messed up. These right here are great. We're going to be making our wet pellets out of one of them, but it has a little rubber coating which keeps it airtight, and that's part of keeping our wet pellet nice and fresh for when we go to paint. We'll put this one aside and we'll use one of them. We're not going to need a lot of alcohol, just a tiny bit. The tiniest bit is going to be great. Right there is going to be perfect. It'll be more than enough. We're going to take all of our parts. That's another thing, whenever you get a kit or build a model, be it resin, plastic, whatever you're building, you're going to want to make sure you have all the parts. I'm going to get rid of this box so we have more room. So we have our CRIM, we have our base with CRIM on it, and these are going to be the smaller parts, like our Jazz and her hair. And so we have Jasmine, we have her ponytail, we have Jasmine with her signature goggles on there, we have CRIM's mohawk, and ice cream. So we'll start with the biggest piece, because that's probably going to need the most time to dry. And all you're going to want to do, first things first, again, I'm not a professional. I can't tell you if this is going to hurt, whatever, if you have allergies to resin. Most people don't. If you don't get it on your skin, you're going to be good. If you do happen to touch up resin with your hands, you just wash your hands vigorously with soap and water. You'll be fine. So we're just going to take our old toothbrush. You might want to put goggles on or glasses, or just not go as rough with the alcohol so it's splashing in onto stuff, especially into your eyes. And you're just gonna give it a little rub back and forth, not really hard. Some people out there might say, why are you not cleaning the supports first? Reason being, if this is wet, I don't want to go cleaning uncured supports. The alcohol is going to help cure it also. It's going to help cure the model. When you take a 3D print off of your 3D printer, it usually gets an alcohol bath, which helps cure the resin. And then after it comes out of that bath, it usually goes into some sort of ultraviolet light container. You can get into that and look into those later, but for the most part, if you have a sunny day, just leave it by your window somewhere where your cat's not going to eat it or anything, but you can put it where it's not going to fall, and you can just leave it in the window for an hour or two, and it's going to be fine. For the most part, Phil and Brandon are not sending out uncured models. Everything's going to be already taken care of in those aspects, but we're just trying to clean it up a little to make sure that our primer sticks to it when we're ready to prime it. So once you're sure you got all of that, we're just gonna set it down. Alcohol is gonna dry faster than if it was just water. I'm just gonna make sure, once again, I'm gonna get all these parts. We're gonna look at, there's a mock-up of this that the Diaz brothers sent me to as a reference. Obviously, if you have your Lost Pages graphic novel, you'll get plenty of references as far as color. If not, I suggest getting it. CRIM is one of many great characters in the Lost Pages, and he seems to be a fan favorite. And I think once you read the comic, you'll know why. So that being said, that's all it took. We're gonna leave it here. We're gonna let it dry. We'll stop the video for now. We will come back really quick. I'll show you how to clean up the supports. All right, so it's been about 15 minutes. I don't think it would take longer than that when I suggested an hour or so or overnight. That's just so you don't have to rush into things. For the most part, this crimstone is pretty dry as far as our alcohol bath. We do want to take our napkin and just anywhere, just dab it. Any place that looks wet, whether it's wet or not, you're just gonna dab it just in case there is any resin or alcohol still drying. This is just gonna speed up things. All this looks great, looks wet, but it's not. Just gonna, like I said, lightly touch it, make sure everything. Be careful because resin prints are very fragile. You don't want to break these parts because that's just going to add more time fixing it, or worst case scenario, ordering another one or requesting another one, which is not what we want to do. We spent a lot of money on these. We just try to take care of them, but we'll be okay. So now we're going to go into cleaning the supports. So as always, these tools, if you've watched the introduction video, you can see that most of these tools I have were purchased at the dollar store. I have my own personal ones, but these are the ones I'm suggesting if you're just a beginner. So I myself am going to use them. I'll start by saying, again, I am not a professional. And if you are not a professional, you're going to want to be careful. If you're someone who is not an adult watching these, trying to do it yourself, I suggest an adult supervising. These are razor blades. They will cut you, and they will cut you bad. I've done it. So with most of these, there's going to be a little slot in there. Open this up. This wiggles in there, and then as you screw it, it's going to get tighter. It will hold it on there, hopefully. Oh, you have to lift this one up. All right, and again, you can see it's a little wobbly. That's going to be okay for what we want. We're not going to put a lot of pressure on these. If we have to put a lot of pressure on them, we're going to go and get a better tool. But for the most part, this is going to do. Now, I don't know if you can see that. There are these little hair-looking things. Those are the supports. I'm trying to see if I can see them. Sorry again, I'm not a professional. But anywhere you see these little hair-looking things that are on your model, if they look like they shouldn't be there, they probably shouldn't. You're going to want to clean those up. You're just going to slide your razor knife across them just a little bit, just to take those off until they pop off. Most of them will pop off. You're just going to want to be very careful not to cut anything that shouldn't come off, or put gouges in the model where you don't want them. Things like this, you'll see the veins on his arms, but then these things right here, you're not going to want. This, if you hear that cracking sound, that is the support coming off. Just going to, almost like a potato peeler, just lightly shave that off. Now we're going to go back with our file and clean that up a little. We just want to not have things standing out when we go to paint this and prime it, because they will stand out like a sore thumb. And again, are there better tools you can use? Yes, but they can be expensive if you really go to like a hobby store or something. Like I said, these are fine for what we're doing. You don't want to take off any of the veins. It might be hard to see, but this port that I just took off, we're going to clean that up with the file. But right around his ear, you can see that there's something that's not supposed to be there. We're going to be very careful and just touch that. And then right above his trap, we got that. Just a little scrapes here and there. Again, be careful by his ear. I'm seeing one right below his earring. There's a tiny bit. I'm just going to pop it off. In his mouth, there's one. We'll pop that off. If you can't get to one, or you can't see it, you don't have to worry about it too much. For hack painters such as myself, we're going to be building most of this model. When I say hack, I just mean if you're painting for competition or something, a lot of people will paint everything in sub-assemblies or individual parts and then build the model. I don't suggest doing that. What we are going to do is we're going to build all of CRIM and all of Jasmine separately. We will paint those separately, and then we will drop Jasmine in there. But right now we're going to focus on getting these supports off, and then when we go to build it in the next video, we'll give you all the tips and tricks that you need and tutorial direction that you need. So there is a little square hole on the back of her neck. So when we go to put this ponytail piece in there, I noticed on mine it doesn't quite fit that well. So while we're cleaning the supports, you could just take your razor knife and just slowly ream that out, just to where you can see some of the sides coming out. And we'll just try to get most of that material out of there. So that way when we go to put the ponytail on there, it'll go in there a little better. Inside this little crevice that fits around her collar of her ponytail here, I'm gonna clean that out. And like I said, mine didn't fit right away, and instead of just pressing it, you just take a minute and scrape the edges just lightly. Everything we're doing is lightly. We're not trying to break stuff. Again, this resin is really fragile. Jasmine's head right by her ears, I think those are her earrings, which we're not gonna cut. This sculpt looks pretty clean. I don't see anything in the way of supports that are gonna hinder us. So now we have everything prepped and ready for building. We will go into our next video. The next video will be part 3 in the series, which will be building the model. We're going to build them in 2 separate assemblies. I'll show you how to do that with relative ease, hopefully. And as always, thanks for watching and have a great day.